Okay, we've been running the Retrojet by Solex for just under 3 years, and the chlorine generator, the cell part, seems to have failed, so that needs to be replaced. There's a couple issues with the Retrojet that I don't particularly care for, and I'll point those out and explain why we're going to go with a different unit. The system's extremely easy to set up. That's one advantage. Just a couple snap connections to put the cell in place, and it is, got my own shadow here, simple fittings, union connections. One of the design issues that I've noticed is that when we put it away for the winter and then got it out in the spring, when we took it out of the storage room in the basement, I noticed this crack with some rusty corrosion coming out through, and it looks to me like these rubber fittings on the top may have either let water through, or where the electrode comes through on the inside, salt water got in there, and as this started to rust, it pushed this plastic out, which could be our problem. Our control unit is behind the filter over here, and it was showing a system error up here, and I wasn't overly impressed with the service people. When I called in and asked what needed to be done to troubleshoot this, I was pretty much immediately upsold to a new unit to the tune of $799. Parts for this were really expensive too. If I chose to replace the cell, it was $332. May or may not fix the issue. Wouldn't be, you know, this isn't under warranty anymore, so we decided to replace the unit with a different manufacturer. So we're gonna take the Retrojet off and switch to this this Hydroworks chlorine generator. And anybody considering doing a saltwater chlorine generator, I wouldn't be intimidated by piping this or switching systems. I'm going to try and show that this is a fairly straightforward process. As you can see, the pool is a bit cloudy. There's a really easy way to bypass the filter, or to plug the filter, so that you can service it. And I am going to do it with a sandwich bag and the lid to a Tupperware container. It's really all you need. You put the lid to the Tupperware container in the bottom of the skimmer, and the water pressure of the pool will push it down over the hole and keep it from leaking. And then you take the output, the little jet part, off, and put the bag over the hole, and then thread the cap, or that bezel that holds the eyeball part back in place. And I'll show you how easy this is. Okay, got the pieces put together. So now we have to get that cut in from that top union to that 90. Almost made a mistake putting that together. You got to make sure you put the threaded bezel that holds the union together on. Almost put the bottom together without it. So you want to be careful, lay out your pieces in the order you need to put them together before you start gluing. Fern comb in place. All that was required is a new 2" 90 union, and then the 2" flow sensor was piped in, reduced down to 1.5 inches, and then the generator that comes with the union connections is put in place. So this was for the old saltwater generator. I didn't reuse this union because it's thinner plate to seal against, and it didn't feel to me like it was gonna snug it up sufficiently. So a 2" female adapter went on the outside threads instead of this inside thread, which is what the Solax used. Outside thread with the 2". You got a 2" union. The flow sensor, make sure the arrow is pointing in the right direction. You've got the generator, make sure that the power cord is up, which is the way the manufacturer says the flow should go. And then a Fernco coupling. I prefer having some Fernco couplings because they're easy to work with. You might wonder why I have a union here and a Fernco down here. Well, this is what I had on hand, and this is what I had on hand, which is why I did it that way, rather than spend $8 on another union. One thing about the Ferncos that I like too is they're really forgiving when you put this together. Between two unions, you have to have things lined up so that you can start the threads easily, whereas the Fernco fittings, they flex and move around. They're fairly easy to work with. So big thunderstorm that blew through. Just a side note, piping in the overflow at the height that you want the water in your skimmer. As the rain falls, the pool automatically levels itself. If you're wondering what this is when you're looking at the plumbing. And when you do this, just make sure to drill some holes in the top so you don't start a siphon. Thoughts with the Blueworks chlorine generator. One of the things that I didn't care for about the Solax generator is when you cut the power to the pool, wherever you had set the saltwater generator, it didn't remember where it was at. It seemed to reset anytime that you cut the power off, or if you run your pump on a timer, then the Solax generator, every time it powered on and powered off, if it was hooked up to the timer, the settings would reset. I don't know if that's just specific to the Retrojet or not, but one thing I've noticed about the Blueworks is it is connected to the timer that kicks the pump on and off certain times throughout the day, and it remembers where it was last set. So if you set it at 50% output based on the size of your pool, when the power kicks on, it remembers that your preference is 50%. Right now I'm running it at 100% to try and clean the pool up a little bit, because we've been without a chlorine generator for almost a week. You've got low salt, high salt indicator. The The nice thing about the Blueworks one compared to Solax is Solax told you when it had low salt. It did not tell you when it had high salt. And similar to the that Retrojet, it does have the range of output, and it also tells you if there's a water flow issue. When I first hooked this up, I put the basket with the stone in it to hold the basket in place, and it did give me a flow fault that did kick on, so that does work. It does sense the reduced flow. When I pulled the rock out of the basket and opened up the skimmer again, then the light went off and it worked. So that's it. Just some cleanup and everything should be good to go. Last thing to do will be to take that filter off and hose it out, because with the algae that was in the pool, the filter is going to be dirty. We don't use a sand filter, we use a cartridge filter, and it's easy to maintain. You just spin the top off, pull the cartridge out, hose it off under pressure, and you can put it back into service. We get about 2 seasons out of a filter. So that's what you're, that's kind of what you're gonna get with all the little noodles and pool toys, pine needles, algae, and everything gets clumped up in that filter. And as you can see from hosing it out, when you get a algae bloom in there, it can accumulate really fast and plug that filter up. So the cartridge is cleaned up and back in place. For anybody wondering about the efficiency or the relative ease of use of a cartridge, it has a couple of spots on it where you can plumb in a couple of items, one of which is a pressure indicator, this right here. So when you look at that, this one usually runs about 12 pounds. When it starts climbing up, you know it's time to clean the filter. And I expect we'll have to let this run for a decent part of the day and then take it out and hose it one more time.